Hello and welcome to the first annual Cannon Games.
Before we begin the games, we must first explain to you the history of the cannon.
The history of the cannon. Cannons have been used throughout history for many military advantages.
The first cannon, the smooth bore, was introduced in the early 14th century in Europe.
The cannon that we recognize today was first introduced at the beginning of the 17th century. From 1300 to 1600, proof that cannons existed was difficult to find and hard for historians to interpret. However, using the resources they have been able to conclude the cannon was first used in the 14th century.
Originally, this cannon was just a simple strong cylinder with one end closed, while the other end was temporarily closed with a cannonball and filled with gunpowder.
When the charge was ignited through the opening at the end, known as the touch hole, the cannon would explode. The cannonball then shot out of the cannon due to highly compressed gas, allowing the cannon to do whatever task was required by it. Examples are smashing a wall, crashing through the side of a ship.
The cannon was an early internal combustion engine. The origin of the cannon started with chemical engineering. The propellant gunpowder was essential in early cannon engineering. However, gunpowder is something that is not easy or something easy to find.
The first step in creating gunpowder is gathering pure potassium nitrate. However, nitrates never occur in pure form in nature. Practically all nitrates are soluble, so it is very unusual to find a nitrate mineral.
Cannons have been very significant and have majorly impacted society through the decades. The cannon has changed in design as well. The earliest cannon was mainly equipped with a cannon and a cannonball, and then we have cannons that have improved to be made
Throughout history, cannons have been created and modified. One cannon from medieval times was the bombard.
The bombard was first used during medieval times. The bombard was manufactured starting with a wooden core. After they had that made, the core would be surrounded with iron bars. After that, they would surround the whole structure with iron, making it sturdy. Then a blacksmith would hammer the structure while it was hot to properly shape it. Finally, they would attach the last piece.
This was a very complicated process that took time. Blacksmiths from all over the world worked hard to build these because of how large the cannons were and the lack of long-distance transportation during the time. The city where the cannon was made was where it was used. For example, if it was made in Constantinople, the people of Constantinople would use it for war. In some places like the Ottoman Empire, they would try to distribute the cannons to all of them.
This type of cannon gave people a military advantage for those who were using it because it was useful for breaking down walls of towns during war as well as the military bases of the enemies. Another reason it gave them a military advantage was because they could fire the cannons during a siege. It was easy to fire and distract the enemy.
During the 1800s, a 32-pounder cannon was created. This cannon was made in the U.S. and used during the Civil War. Iron was the key ingredient for making this cannon. Iron would be melted and shaped, then cooled, which sometimes took weeks, and then together the pieces would form the cannon.
During the 1800s, mailing and distributing was much more advanced than it had been in medieval times, so the manufacturer of this cannon were able to send these cannons to all parts of the U.S. Sometimes the manufacturer could not meet the deadlines because the cannons requested were too big. The cannons were often taken apart and distributed by their pieces.
This cannon gave a military advantage to mostly Navy ships when they were using a surprise attack on the enemy. Though they did not use the Navy a lot in the Civil War, this would become more effective during World War I. These were also used in the British Navy.
By the 1900s, cannon technology had significantly evolved, and especially with the trench motor. The trench motor was the first motor introduced in 1915 and used primarily during World War I. Iron balls were placed together. Iron balls were placed together to help assemble the cannon. Later, these kinds of cannons went on to be manufactured in factories.
This cannon was very heavy and had a very long tube. This cannon was made so that it would fire whatever the projectile is at an angle higher than 45 degrees. Because this cannon could be dismantled for transportation and could cause a lot of damage, many different countries used it throughout the war, including France, the U.S., Italy, and Austria-Hungary.
This cannon specifically gave its users a military advantage during siege warfare. This is because the trench mortar was capable of mass damage. The French estimated that 80 rounds of firing were all that it needed to completely destroy a strong defensive enemy ship.
Between 336 and 323 BCE, Alexander the Great led one of the most successful military conquests of all time. He was able to reunite Greece and then led an army which took over many parts of the world. His father, who was king before him, had created a large army with many soldiers. His father trained the members of his army very well. Alexander the Great was able to take the army from his father and train them to fight as a whole. He taught them how to work together in battle and be successful.
Alexander the Great had new gear made for his army. They gave them new shields and also provided them all with helmets that covered and protected their faces, as well as allowing them to hear and see. Also, each member of the army had a toga for protection.
In addition to the shield, each member of the army carried large spears with them to use in battle. These spears could be up to 5 or 8 feet. These spears were different than the ones used by other militaries because these were much longer. This gave the soldiers advantage because they didn't have to reach very far to get to the enemy. Each soldier also had a double-edged sword.
During the late 1700s, the French Revolution took place. The people of France were angry about how their country was being run and revolted. After that time, there was unrest in France and a question of who should be in power. Napoleon Bonaparte came to power. However, he angered many other leaders worldwide. This caused the Napoleonic Wars in the early 19th century.
Some of the weapons used during the Napoleonic Wars included muskets, rifles, bayonets, swords, pistols, lance, saber, and 6 and 12-pound cannons. Cannons were used by almost every nation involved. Muskets and rifles were used in soldier-to-soldier battle, and since they were relatively new at the time, they were not always accurate. Oftentimes, different units of Napoleon's army were skilled to fight with a specific kind of weapon.
After World War I, Germany was left destroyed. This led Adolf Hitler to bring himself and the Nazi Party to power, which led to the violent World War II. This war involved a lot of countries. During this war, a lot of new weapons were used, especially by Germany.
Some of the weapons used during this war included pistols, rifles, submachine guns, hand grenades, flamethrowers, cannons, and the atomic bomb. The atomic bomb was only used by the United States. It was a big deal because it killed thousands of people in Japan. These weapons were more precise than before and allowed for more accuracy.
Thanks.